All right, Paddy. Initial thoughts on that game? Like, what a cracking finish.
Yeah, there was a big build-up coming into the game. Obviously, two of the most probably exciting sets of forwards on display, particularly after the performances last weekend, and it didn't disappoint. Initially, Dublin, they did go into a 7-point lead in the second half, and normally from that position we've seen them being so composed and closing games out. But to be fair to Kerry, far more urgency, far more energy in the second half, and probably on the basis of that second half performance, they probably deserved the draw in the end.
Was that it? Was that the key difference, that Kerry were just a little more urgent in the third quarter?
I think it was definitely that, and probably Dublin probably took the foot off the gas a little bit as well. Like, they were lethal in the first half. Conor O'Callaghan and Kieran Kilkenny were causing all sorts of trouble in the Kerry full back line. Like, Dublin only scored 1-3 in the second half. 2 points from play, and Cormac Costello's penalty as well. So they weren't as sharp up front probably in the second half, but Kerry's energy in terms of pushing up on Evan Comfort's kickouts, they started turning the Dublin defenders over, coming out of defence. That was a huge thing. That energy and that pace brought into the game, and Kerry were just so passive in the first half, and you cannot play that way against Dublin and hope to be successful.
I do want to come to that in just a moment, but first of all, Costello, Con, Paddy Small, what a full forward line.
Yeah, that's the challenge. And look, if you're on the Kerry side, if you're analysing their game, you would look and say probably their full back line is an area that teams are going to try and target. And you could see that in the first half. Conor O'Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny was switching in with Cormac Costello. Paddy Small scored 3 points from play. And that's still outside. Dublin did have 7 wides in the first half, which is very, very unlikely. But once they clicked into gear, particularly that second quarter, like, Kerry didn't score for 15 minutes. And Dublin were just letting the ball in long to Conor O'Callaghan. He scored 2 goals, hit the post with another one, and had a save from Kieran Fitzgibbon. So he easily could have had 4 goals. When those guys are on song, that is what makes Dublin probably the top team, and very hard to stop if the ball is with Conor O'Callaghan and Kieran Kilkenny.
And the incredible thing about it was that they were slowing the play down. 4 or 5 minutes, they'd have the ball, goal chance. What don't you want to see as a Dublin player when you are moving the ball from wing to wing in those situations?
From Dublin's point of view, and that was, I suppose, the beauty of the performance in the first half, when Kerry brought guys back and they had 12 or 13 players behind the ball, Dublin would still keep the ball for 3 or 4 minutes. It comes to Niall Scully, it comes to Brian Fenton, they work the ball over and back. And to be fair, we've seen that with Conor O'Callaghan's goal. Dublin had the ball for 3 minutes, worked the ball into the corner to Kieran Kilkenny, who eventually got Conor O'Callaghan at the end of it. All of a sudden, Kerry tried to push out and play man on man, and Dublin recognised it straight away, and Niall Scully puts a 60-yard kick pass in and takes out the whole Kerry defence and gets Con one-on-one for his second goal. So Dublin have the ability and they have the experience of playing this style of play over the last 5 or 6 years, where if they need to be patient on the ball, they can do it. But on the flip side, if they see space and it's one-on-one, they will get the ball to Conor O'Callaghan and Kieran Kilkenny. And that was the beauty, I suppose, in the first half, and they had Kerry in all sorts of trouble playing that way.
What was Brian Fenton's role today?
He seemed to play a little bit further up the pitch. It was interesting. I think it was probably a blow to Kerry that Jack Barry wasn't able to play. They've had some great battles, Jack Barry and Fenton, over the last number of years. He is such a key player for Dublin. He's so key in their transition. Probably a quiet enough day by such as high standards. The same with Kieran Kilkenny, and that probably, Dublin would have wanted him to get on the ball a little bit more, particularly in the second half, when, like I say, when Kerry were starting to get on top. But it shows if Kerry can get a plan for Brian Fenton and try and tie him up, it does take a huge thing away from Dublin going forward. So interesting from Dublin, probably trying something a little bit different, playing Fenton a little bit further up the pitch.
Do Kerry revert to a sweeper at this point? Do they revert to an extra man in defence if they come up against that Dublin attack again later in the summer?
It's very difficult for Peter Keane, and I don't envy him. I mean, last year he tried to play a probably more defensive style of play. He had Brian O'Buglock playing in the wing forward position and dropping back. That really didn't work for them. Obviously, they were beaten by Cork, and the reaction from Kerry supporters and within the Kerry camp would have been that they need to go back and play a more traditional style and play 6 forwards up the pitch. They tried to do that today. But on the flip side, if you're playing man-on-man in your defence, they've got to have the backs that are capable of dealing with Dublin's key forwards. And in the first half, they really weren't able to do that. So it is such a difficult thing for Peter Keane, finding that balance between playing, okay, we want to let our top forwards off the leash and play that traditional style of Kerry football on the front attacking, but if they leave their full back line one-on-one, it is an area where you can see them struggling, definitely.
That could be the difference down the line as well, and it should have been the difference maybe from Dublin's perspective today, is that Dublin are also marking man-to-man. They're also taking on David Clifford man-to-man. The thing is, Kerry are converting those chances with points. Dublin are creating a multitude of goal chances.
Yeah, and like I say, that's probably the experience that Dublin have. If you're playing in that Dublin front back line and you see Sean McMahon today coming in, kind of a newcomer, did really, really well on Killian Spillane in the first half. Killian Spillane was really strong for Kerry last week, scoring 4 points, taken off at half time. If you're playing in the Dublin back line, you are expected to be able to mark man to man. If there's a sweeper or there's an extra man back, that's a bonus. But you see Michael Fitzsimons, arguably the best cornerback in the game, he's marking David Clifford, and he has to deal with himself, and that's the challenge, and that's the standard Dublin play at, and that's what they demand of their backs. Fitzsimons actually, I thought, did quite well on David Clifford, but Clifford, because he's so good, still ends up with 5 points per play, which is amazing. But that is the difference. Dublin have been comfortable and expect their defenders to play man to man, and have been doing that for 5 or 6 years. They're not going to play defensive forwards and try and bring guys back. And ultimately, Kerry, I think, know that that's the style they need to play to beat Dublin. But are their defenders? I know they're missing Thomas Sullivan from the full back line today. That's going to be the challenge. And ultimately, if Kerry are going to win the All Ireland, they're probably going to have to beat Dublin along the way, and they're going to need to be able to tie up Conor O'Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny, Cormac Costello, Dean Rock to come back. That's always the question mark over Kerry.
What's the Paddy Andrews breakdown of the penalty taking today?
Well, he's had enough practice. Cormac Costello to be 4 penalties in 2 weeks. It was a great strike, but it was a really important one as well. Like Kerry had got it back level. Dublin were kind of feeling the pressure, and it was a big spot kick, well won by Conor O'Callaghan, but Cormac, to be fair to him, rifled to the roof of the net with the pressure on. It was a really good kick. And the same for David Clifford. I mean, 73rd minute, he knows that that's the chance. Kerry were probably struggling to create a goal chance outside of that, but the two guys, they showed their mettle, really high pressure kicks, and to be fair, 2 of the top forwards in the game, so 2 great finishes.
A couple of personnel questions on the Dublin front. First of all, how did Comerford do in your opinion today?
Thought he was really good. Like I said, he was put under big pressure in the second half particularly, but again, if you're playing in goal for Dublin, that is, you're going to have to deal with that. Stephen Cluxton has obviously been the standard bearer, is not playing in the National League at the minute, so Evan, it seems like the natural progression from that, and to be fair, I thought he was really good today, like I say, in the face of some pretty high pressure in the second half, particularly from Kerry. But I thought interesting in the first half as well, when Kerry did try and push up on Evan, he did actually get a couple of balls over the Kerry press into Brian Fenton and Niall Scully as well. So look, he has loads of talent, and it's great for him to start getting a couple of more game times, because obviously Stephen can't go on forever. But I thought he was quite good today, yeah. And
then what about Lahif? Is he edging towards being the partner for Fenton in midfield?
It's hard to know. That is, like I say, the Dublin team, he can probably name 12 or 13 of their starters straight off the bat. There is a gap for someone to play midfield with Brian Fenton, particularly with Michael Darragh-Macaulay stepping away. It's James McCarthy has gone in there and played in the past. James is probably more comfortable himself playing in the half back line as well. There does seem to be a spot beside Fenton, and ultimately that's, you want Brian Fenton if you're Dublin marauding forward. He's scoring 3-4 points a game. Whoever plays in that role beside him is going to be more of a defensive style of player. I thought Tom did quite well today, but I do think that it's probably a position that's up for grabs, and Dublin are trying out 2 or 3 different midfielders. I know they have new players in the squad as well, but that's definitely an area where Dublin are probably looking for someone to put their hand up and say, I'm going to be Brian Fenton's partner, let him off, and I suppose do the fancier stuff while you're going to be in there grafting and trying to give Dublin a platform.
It's interesting from Kerry's perspective that part of their uptick happened after they took Paul Ganey and David Moran off. I know they were going well before that, in fairness. They looked absolutely shattered. Paul Ganey came off just in front of us. He looked completely spent. Like, is there a stage in a man's career where things need to change a little bit once you get into the 30s? I know Paul Ganey was out at the start of the season saying that he's not at that stage yet where people need to talk about the end, but they were absolutely knackered out there. They did see him coming off. Yeah,
well, I'm 32 now, and I knew well myself that my time had come to an end. But look, I think if you're playing Dublin, the speed, the athleticism they have, you need to be able to get around the pitch. It's no coincidence. Once Kerry brought in a little bit more energy and a little bit more speed and a little bit more fight up front, that helped turn the tide for him. David Moran's a brilliant player, but he's probably not the most athletic for midfield, so no more so than Fenton with Dublin. David Moran, if he's going to play midfield, he needs to have someone who is really athletic to get up and down the pitch at midfield. Paul Ganey, to be fair, he's probably struggling for form the last kind of 18 months or so. I don't think putting him out at wing forward is going to help him return to form. He is not naturally a wing forward, particularly in today's game. Paul Ganey on form is one of the most lethal finishers in the country. Play him on the edge of the square. I think to try and ask him to get back to form, playing in a position which is just not really natural to him, I think it's going to be hard for Paul Geaney out there. I think Kerry, if they want to get the best out of him, should probably try and play him inside. But yeah, the two guys coming off, it's hard playing against this Dublin team, particularly around the middle third, and you could probably see that when they come off around 45 minutes, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question then, Paddy. What was it like being back at a game where you're not playing, actually having that little bit of a blue heart, I'd imagine, thumping as things were getting tight at the end?
Yeah, no, look, it was delighted. My first game of the year that I've been able to get to. I know, geez, it would have been amazing to have some sort of supporters here as well from both counties, because it was such an exciting game. But look, it's different. But for me, no more so than, I suppose, seeing David Moore and Paul Geaney coming off and seeing how knackered they were. I know that feeling very, very well. So look, I'm happy I made the right call. It was time for me to move on. And I think that's the exciting thing for Dublin as well. Myself, Michael Lara McCauley, a couple of guys that have been there for a long time have moved on. Paul Mannion, obviously, but you see someone like Paddy Small really starting to put his hand up, scored 3 points today. Dara Mullen coming on again, the forward line. That's been, I suppose, the beauty of Dublin's success. As older players start to move on, new guys are just coming through, and to be able to have that consistent success as some of Dublin's key players over the years have retired, that's been such a key part of their success, that strength and depth.
Great stuff today, Paddy.
No worries, thanks a million.